Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today, by the mercy of Lord Sri Krishna, we are going to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 85, Texts 24 and 25. So you don't have this. So I'll just chant the Sanskrit and the words.
What was the chapter?
10:85:25. Atma Hyeka Svayam Joytir Nichonyo Nirguna Gunai Atma Shrasasta Kirteshu Peshu Bandhu Bandheta Atma the Supreme Soul.
Supreme Soul.
He indeed.
Indeed.
Eka one. Svayam Jyoti. Self-luminous. Nitya. Eternal. Anya. Distinct from the material energy. Nirguna. Free from material qualities. Gunai. By the modes. Atma. From itself. Trishtai. Created. Tat,
Tat,
in there,
Kriteshu,
products,
products,
Bhuteshu, material entities, Bahuda, manifold, Iyate, it appears. Translation. The Supreme Spirit, Paramatma, is indeed one. He is self-luminous and eternal, transcendental, and devoid of material qualities. But through the agency of the very modes he has created, the one supreme truth manifests as many among the expansions of those modes. Text 25. Kam vayor driti apovus tat kriteshu yatashayam avish triyol paburnye ko navatvam yayatsavapi kam either vayu air jyoti fire apa water earth tat there kriteshu in the products yata ashayam according to the particular locations avi manifest trira unmanifest alpa small puri large eka one nan nanatvam the status of being many yati assumes aso it api also. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. The elements of ether, air, fire, water, and earth become visible, invisible, minute, or extensive as they manifest in various objects. Similarly, the Paramatma, though one, appears to become many. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this in the previous verse as follows. The one Paramatma appears to be many by the influence of the modes of nature that he himself creates. How is that? Because although in truth the Paramatma is self-illuminating, eternal, aloof from everything, and free from the modes of nature, when he appears as his manifestations, he seems to be just opposite. A multiplicity of temporary objects saturated with the modes of nature. That's very deep. Very deep. Just as the elements of ether and so on, when manifesting in pots and other things, seem to appear and disappear, so the Paramatma seems to appear and disappear in his various manifestations. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvadi Krishna Satarane Omagana Timarandasya Jananjanan Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yat Kriptamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. So this is very, very interesting verse and purport. Read that one sentence again. Because although in truth the Paramatma is self-illuminating, eternal, aloof from everything, and free from the modes of nature, when he appears as his manifestations, he seems to be just the opposite, a multiplicity of temporary objects saturated with the modes of nature. Srila Prabhupada gave a class, a very interesting class, just a stone's throw from here, 26 2nd Avenue in the 60s. And it must have been very early because the very early classes that recorded is a specific quality. It's hard to describe it. Prabhupada had this really kind of urgency in his voice that he's trying to transmit this transcendental message. And so he's explaining in that class, the verse, how earth, air, fire, water, ether, mind, intelligence, and also ego, Krishna says, these are my separated material energies. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining this, how Krishna is non-different than his energies. And Srila Prabhupada said in this very firm voice, he said, you are not sitting on a floor. He said, you are sitting on Krishna. So, very deep, very simple, but very deep. Srila Prabhupada, he once gave a definition of the material manifestation as that portion of the Lord's creation in which the Lord's all-pervasiveness is not perceived. The material creation is that part of the Lord's creation in which his all-pervasiveness is not perceived. So for a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, he's actually in the spiritual realm, although he's within the material world. For the conditioned souls, they're completely engrossed in the material nature. And for us, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and a disciple succession who have engaged in the process of devotional service, we occasionally get glimpses of how things are spiritual, and sometimes very potent kind of epiphanies and realizations. So we also understand there's a very wonderful verse also in the first canto, Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Oslam Thomas Loki Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. How by rendering service to the pure devotee, everything inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and transcendental. Sorry, by regularly hearing the Bhagavatam and rendering service, all the inauspicious things in the heart are destroyed practically to nil, and loving service to the Lord comes to be established as an irrevocable fact. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada, he says there's three things. There's Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. There is the book Bhagavat, which is about Bhagavan. And he said there's the person Bhagavat. And he said they are identical. In one sense, they are identical. And he said any one of those can award us complete liberation. And I had an experience in 1977. We went to see Srila Prabhupada for his final pastimes. And when we got to India, I went into Srila Prabhupada's room and I offered my obeisance to Srila Prabhupada. And when I looked up at Srila Prabhupada, it was very difficult to explain the experience. I don't know if I saw it with my mind, my eyes, or my heart, but I could somehow understand that Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of his books, and he was embodied in his books. It's a very, very powerful thing, very powerful thing. And we all experience that sometimes. We read Srila Prabhupada's books, and it just resonates so profoundly to what's happening in our lives. And so the verse is describing how these different energies like earth, air, and fire, they're manifestations of the modes of nature, but somehow super soul can enter into those things in ways, because it's no different than Krishna's energy. And Prabhupada described how the material energy, Daivesha Gunamaya Mama Maya Darachaya Mamivi Prapadanti Maya Metantarantite. He says Daivi Maya, it's actually divine. And Prabhupada explains how that material energy, according to our relationship with Krishna, it either becomes the Maya which entangles us in the material world, or becomes Krishna's internal energy. And he said it's just like the electrician, he can, with some manipulations, he can make electricity into light, he can make it into coolness, air conditioning, or produce heat. And he said in the same way, Krishna, according to our relationship, that energy acts differently upon us. And he described how when you serve Krishna, that energy becomes like the mouth of a cat. And he said, like sometimes you'll see the mother cat is carrying the kitten. It's very cute. It's carrying the kitten by the teeth and moving the kittens. And he mentioned also sometimes you'll see a cat with a rat in the mouth. And the rat is feeling the jaws of death. And once outside the Vancouver temple, I heard this shrilling scream. And I thought, oh, God, is that a child? And I ran out to see this. And I thought, that sounds a little different than a child scream. And I went up, and there was this big cat with a rat in its jaws, and the rat was screaming. That's the material energy. So how to realize that? So it's by the process of devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada, he described even a pure devotee, he sees everything in relationship with Krishna, and he described once, even sometimes someone might come and attack. Someone might attack a pure devotee. And the pure devotee will think, oh, Krishna has just sent this individual here so that I can take shelter of him. Amazing level of consciousness. So like Haridas Thakur was completely unaffected by the beatings that were imposed upon him by the Muslims. So that's inconceivable. And this first kind of struck close to home about how Krishna can manifest through his books and through the words of the pure devotee. Because last summer, I think it was July 17th, there was a forest fire near us in Saranagati and then nearby, maybe 2 valleys away, and we could see some smoke. And then one afternoon, the government came and they wanted to give the devotees a seminar on just fire prevention, how you can do things to kind of clean up around your house to make it less likely to catch on fire. So they were doing a presentation in the outside of our school, everyone's sitting there. And so we live very close to the school. And when I walked down the school from my house, I turned around, and on the ridge behind us, there was a big, huge plume of smoke. I thought, that's a little concerning. And we're sitting in that meeting after about 20 minutes, and it sounded like an airplane. I thought, that sounds just like a big prop airplane. But it didn't, the sound didn't diminish.
Oh my God.
It's just, and then one of the people, the fire education people, just went into the parking lot and he was on his phone, and the sound was getting a little louder, and he said, well, actually, you need to evacuate right now. So we walked back to our house, which was maybe 150 yards away. We just up the driveway, and then looking up the driveway, and there's a big ridge behind us, and there was a wall of fire 100 feet in the air.
Wow.
And it was just making this rumbling sound. You could feel the vibration. And so we all have to evacuate. And so we were evacuated to a local town. And for the first 5 days, there was no really news what was happening because they're so busy trying to get the fire under control, and there's smoke and it's an emergency situation. And then gradually we start to get some reports. And they're also slow because if your house burns, they're not going to just put it on the public news. They want to tell people first. So everyone had no idea what was going on. So for about 5 days, we really had no idea what was going on. And then some news began to trickle out that there was some certain structures that were lost, and some might have been homes, and some were just, they couldn't tell if they were homes or garages or what. So we're having Bhagavatam class at one devotee's house there. And every day we're reading the Bhagavatam. And I'm just going to read you the verse that came up. So all this is going on. We're in a state of uncertainty. We don't know what's going to happen. And this is the purport, person purport from 10:151. The verse is, when a fire for some unseen reason leaps over one piece of wood and sets fire to the next, the reason is destiny. Similarly, when a living being accepts one kind of body and leaves aside another, there was no other reason than unseen destiny. And then in the purport, he says, when there is a fire in a village, Sarnagati village is where we live. When there's a fire in a village, the fire sometimes jumps over one house and burns another. Similarly, when there is a forest fire, the fire sometimes jumps over one tree and catches another. Why this happens, no one can say. One may set forth some imaginary reasons why the nearest tree or house did not catch fire, whereas a distant tree or house in a distant place did. But actually, the reason is destiny. And a little further on, he says, this is the work of unseen. The work of unseen destiny cannot be ascertained by practical experimental knowledge. Therefore, one must be satisfied by reasoning that everything is done by supreme providence. Supreme providence. And I think I was giving a class that day, and actually I read the verse about 4 times in a row. I couldn't believe this is what came up when all this is going on. And then we started having some discussion, and one nobody asked, well, that word destiny, isn't that a little impersonal? I'm sorry, the word providence, isn't that a little impersonal? So I just pulled out Google Guru. What's the definition of providence? What came up was providence was, it was amazing, the foresightful care of a supreme deity or God. A foresightful care of God. So fires happening, someone's house is burning down, many other houses are not burning down. Unseen providence. And it was just, to hear that was kind of soothing. And then eventually we found out most of the village was saved. There was a couple houses that were people who were part-time residents burned. One full-time resident's home burned. Long story short, they were able to purchase another house. They got a lot of support from people. But it was amazing how Srila Prabhupada literally walked out of the pages of the book to give us some comfort and solace about what was happening. So Supersoul, the spiritual master is the external manifestation of the Supersoul. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, with the purpose of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, he said, I will live forever in my books. So we can actually access Srila Prabhupada by reading his books and being very attentive to his words. What is being said to us? I'll admit many times I read and I zero realization. And if you ask me after reading for half an hour, what I remember, nothing. But when I walk away, I just feel, I feel transformed just from coming in contact with the book. It's elevating. That's the one time Prabhupada said, even if someone touches a book, they're purified. So somehow or other, if we regularly hear the Bhagavatam, we become purified. And hopefully by our attempts at sincere seva, serving Krishna and the mission of Srila Prabhupada, more and more Krishna will reveal himself through his books. So that is such a, that was probably one of those profound experiences in my life, seeing that fire and reading that purport. You see how Srila Prabhupada manifests. And we had one other experience of Srila Prabhupada in 1975. We were living in a very remote rural community. And Radhakrishna Didis from Stoll in Vancouver moved to this farm project. Within the first few months, during the beginning of the winter, all the American devotees got deported. So all of a sudden, the devotee population just dropped right down. There was hardly anyone. Not much money. All the Brahmins were gone except for a few. And at that time, we only had first initiation, only first initiation. And There was not many pujaris. And the fourth canto just came out with the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj. And Srila Prabhupada describes in those purports that one can worship the deity according to time and circumstance with what is available. So temple presidents of time and circumstance, we're in the middle of nowhere, not many devotees, not much money. He said, we'll stop buying flowers for garlands and vases, just a few flowers for offering artik, that's it, boss. And we're in the middle of nowhere, that farm was very remote. And he said, we're going to stop buying opulent bulgur for the deities, just whatever is in the root cellar, which was cabbage, apples, potatoes, and maybe some carrots. That became the only thing on the deities menu. And not enough Brahmins. We had first initiation. Our request for second initiation was in the mail. So the temple president said, well, your initiation is practically done, so you can do some deity worship. So we had to start to do some deity worship. And the deities had just been recently installed. Prabhupada hadn't seen the deities, and he wanted to send some pictures to Srila Prabhupada, who was in India at the time, of the deities, so Srila Prabhupada could name the deities. So he went to town, got some flowers, had Uttama make some vases, and had her put the two vases on Radha Krishna's altar. And he took a picture. And then he moved the vases to Gauni Pai's altar, and took a picture, and moved the vases to Jagannath's altar, and took a picture, and he sends us to Prabhupada. And that time there's no, if you were a big corporation, you might have had a fax machine, but there was no computer, very hard to get a hold of Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada, you would think, had no idea what was going on. So about a month later, a letter comes back, and in the letter, Srila Prabhupada, he said, the picture of your newly installed deities, he said, are very, very beautiful. And you can name them Sri Sri Radha Madana Mohan. And then he described in the letter how you should worship them very nicely, like they worship the deities in Los Angeles and New Vrindavan, have nice bathing ceremony every day, 6 artiks every day. And then he said, you should always make sure they have nice flowers, nice foodstuffs, and that they're only served by duly initiated Brahmins. So things immediately changed. And our letter granting us second initiation, I think, came the next day or something. And I remember we're actually sitting there reading both letters. And in that letter, Srila Prabhupada, he said, he described how Radha Madana Mohan should be worshipped. And he said, Radha Madana Mohan have kindly come to you in this form. And he said, if you accept them in this consciousness and worship them very nicely, he said, you will all develop love of God. And I read that. And I remember telling Uttama, I told her, we'd only had second initiation for 30 seconds. Not much longer. I told her, I had this feeling I'm going to become a head pujari. And then something happened, probably within 1 or 2 weeks, I ended up becoming head pujari, which I remained for almost 20 years. But it was just like somehow Prabhupada knew what was going on. Like Krishna, he was so intimately connected with Krishna, with everyone's super soul. And so our philosophy is very, very personal. Like you were talking about, we actually don't know much about relationships, but we realize we need to have good relationships. That's so important. And Prabhupada in his books, it's like, it's extremely relational how sometimes these very relevant things come out of Srila Prabhupada's books that just deeply touch our heart. I remember hearing some Bob Dylan poem once, and he was saying how reading some book of poetry and the words were glowing like the embers of a fire on a cool night, jumping off the page. Like that's what it's like reading Papa's books sometimes, to get those realizations. And that comes from, those kind of relations come by us developing that personal relationship with the deity, serving Srila Prabhupada, and also serving and honoring and respecting all the Vaishnavas. And sometimes it's most difficult to have good relationships with the people you are closest to. We become a little familiar, and it's sometimes can be a challenge to treat everyone with respect and compassion and kindness. Sometimes it's easy to go in Sankirtan and you come back to the temple and we tend to rub each other the wrong way. But there's things and ways we can learn to do the things we know we should do, but sometimes there's things that block us. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about in the seminar today. And that is very important, our relationships, because our relationships with everyone around us, in the ashram or in Grahastha ashram, you're working, that's the practicum for Krishna consciousness. That's where you actually can practically apply the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. There's immense opportunities. So living in the ashram closely with a bunch of people, being in Grahastha, living very closely with someone for many, many years, having children, there are immense opportunities for developing humility, tolerance, and patience. It's not just that one day a magic switch is going to go on and everything is going to be shanti, 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 peaceful. But we kind of learn that, develop that humility, tolerance, and patience by practice. And if we develop the bhakti, tolerance tends to have the connotation of like gritting teeth, like it's very, you're just grinding it out. But in a spiritual sense, tolerance, if it's tempered with bhakti or love, it becomes patience. It's a lot easier to be patient than that grinding feeling of tolerance. So that is the fruit we're all striving for, to develop that kind of love for Krishna and love for his devotees, to have loving relationships with everyone. So this is very, this verse also jumped out to me and reminded me of that fire this morning. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Krishna, welcome. Thank you for such a nice class. What comes across is, Satang Prasangan Mamaviriya says that you hear the discourse given by the Sat, by the pure devotee. It's pleasing to the ear and satisfying to the heart. Yeah. So we can't help but respond, this is a genuine devotee. This is someone who is just living Krishna consciousness with no agenda or, so we thank you so much for that. And did your house burn down?
No.
So
not the blade of grass burned up.
Wow.
There's an area about maybe 100 acres around my house, including the Goshal temple, several houses. The fire just went around.
Yeah.
They can bring out.
The experiences Krishna sends us, we perceive them, and we have an opportunity to respond to them one way or another. And Shastra Chakshus, when we see things through the eyes of Scripture, we understand there's a loving hand behind this. It's not chaos.
Yes.
Krishna's there, and we accept whatever Krishna sends, whether the house burns down or not, and not just grit the teeth and bear it, but thank you, Lord, for everything just as it is. How can I serve you under this circumstance? So when we have the attitude of devotional service and the faith in the Lord, I saw this video clip on the news. Some tornado had torn through this village in Alabama and shredded everything, And of course, the newscasters are there with the microphone, and everybody's crying in my house. Oh, I can't find my mother's picture, And then this trap door opens, and this man comes out holding a baby, and he has a toddler and his wife there, and the lady runs over there with the microphone. What do you think, sir? What do you think? He says, well, the good Lord giveth and the good Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That, he accepted. He didn't lament. He wasn't tearing his hair out. This house was vaporized. I mean, they panned the thing with nothing left. but the consciousness that we respond to what Krishna sends. Okay, Lord, like this, the Hasidic Jewish people say, who is a wealthy man? One who is satisfied with whatever the Lord gives. So when we're Krishna conscious and we have the attitude, how can I serve you under this circumstance? Then we're untouched. Narayana Parasave, nothing. The devotee doesn't care whether he goes to heaven or hell. But well, I've heard that we don't care if you go to heaven or hell, because okay, going to hell, okay, we'll serve Krishna there. Prabhupada came here. Anyway, I'm speaking too long. Regards to show Prabhupada, thank you so much for such a nice class.
There was a family that their house burned down. They were interviewed on national television, and the Mataji Radha Krishna, she told me the experience was like a type of freedom for her, and it was quite amazing. And she was interviewed on national news, and it's the same kind of things that you were saying. She was saying in a Krishna conscious context. It was very amazing. And they asked her, maybe like 10-year-old daughter, how are you feeling? And she said, well, she said, I like Sarnagati. And she said, Sarnagati, it's not the buildings, it's the devotees. That's Sarnagati. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Expand on.
No, it's okay.
I was just wondering if you could expand on the point about how the super souls manifest in all the modes. I can't quite imagine super soul manifesting ignorance, passion. What does that mean?
Well, for the conditioned soul, directly or indirectly, Krishna's directing them. He's directing the wanderings of all living entities. So the modes of material nature are directing the conditioned souls according to their perverted desires, to fulfill their perverted propensities. So in one sense, that's not a blade of grass moving without Krishna's will. And for devotees, somehow Krishna he's manifested. Like Moses, he saw God in the form of a burning bush. And so we can only see the Shastra Chakshusha, and also through developing bhakti is probably the only way we can develop that understanding. Any other questions or comments?
Anyone online have any questions, comments? I was thinking on this point, similar to what Uttama Devi mentioned, that somehow when I heard it read, I was thinking that it was referring to how the super soul appears in the heart of every living entity, which is also covered by the modes, as Prabhupada says. All the different 8,400,000 species of life are created by the diversity of the modes mixing and mingling, and the super soul is in there, and also in one sense manifested from those modes that he created. Would that be correct assumption? Or
I think that's also correct. And I think, like, in the sense also that Krishna is non-different than his energies, so super soul can actually manifest in the energies to teach us lessons. Like the Avadhuta Brahma in the Bhagavatam, he had so many different gurus, the wind and the birds, and that he was seeing that Krishna is acting through this as my guru to teach me something.
One thing Srila Prabhupada said, that Krishna is the reservoir of all beauty. So if we see Krishna everywhere, we'll see beauty everywhere. And the Bible said all things work for the good for those who love God. So the switch, if we're Krishna conscious, then we're untouched by the matra sparsas to account. Happiness and distress are going to come. But what one must tolerate them without being disturbed. And what's not disturbed? Our service to Krishna. If we're fixed in our service, then whatever circumstances, we're grateful for that, and we're willing to, okay, how can I serve Krishna? And this circumstance, this is another perfect arrangement for me to learn and grow. And how can I serve you, Lord? Just to be not just equipoised, but joyful.
Gratitude.
In the face of anything, and that's what Srila Prabhupada is exhibiting, and that what we're learning and the steps we aspire to following. Thank you, Lord. How can I serve you under this circumstance? No lump, no sochiti, no kanchati, no hankering, no lamenting.
In our initiation letter that I was describing, Prabhupada said, in this community, Nugokula, there will be many difficulties. And he quoted Matashtra Shastra Krutya. How you have to tolerate the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress. And that letter was so prophetic. So many things happened, including a big 100-year-old log barn burnt down, and it was like a tragic comedy. I mean, no one got hurt, but it was tough.
Because we were so down.
Yeah, very, very inexperienced devotees.
Young city slickers in the country, and you want them to manifest something,
Here. Oh, well, sorry. City slickers.
We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
There's
Babes in the woods.
There's a question online from Narottam Nitai Prabhu. He says, what is more important in Krishna consciousness, enthusiasm, determination, or patience? Or is this a misdirected question? Should we have proper understanding and balanced management of these principles in application of Krishna consciousness?
Well, I think the answer is yes, yes, and yes. They're all important. And leaning into one at certain times may be more applicable than others. And also, especially leaning into enthusiasm can help us when we need to develop, the patience. As Adipusha was saying, we have to have that attitude of gratitude and say, okay, Krishna, there's something behind here he wants me to learn. He loves me. He's putting me in this situation. So that having enthusiasm based on gratitude, not something artificial. Because like you're saying, Krishna consciousness is very beautiful.
Hey, Nimai.
And even these adverse situations, in one sense, there's some beauty in that too. That's very difficult to understand. Being a long-time Acharya, excessively compulsively drawn to punctuality.
Well,
Which my wife complains about sometimes.
that may not be a strength in the situation.
You're right. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, Jai.
Jayo.
This guy's Partha Prabhu ki jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Jai.
Jai.
Bhagavad Gita piece for me. Remember that Krishna's in control. Remember what?
He's a friend.
He's your friend. He's your friend, but he's not in control. It's useless. He's in control. He's not your friend. And we're supposed to do the way he wants it. I expect it. I understand it. Whatever you like. To get in one of those.
Nelly, Nimai.
Gaura Chandra, Gaura Chandra, Jaya Gaura Chandra. Dasa Sharana Murli Dogwa Chanda Bhagavan Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can obtain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and attain the mercy of Krishna. I only wish to have my consciousness purified and words attachment to his lotus feet, affection that fulfills all desires. He opens my heart and eyes. Here's my Lord. From an ecstatic panic, my ignorance is destroyed. Vedic scriptures seem to scare. Our spiritual masters, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and Master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Fame be spread all over the three worlds who take shelter at your lotus feet. Jai.
Thank you, Janitai Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Afterglow. In this material world, we are in the hands of destiny, in the loving hands of destiny, which is providence, which is Krishna, who is providing. See, Jeffrey Eckler had enough to have breakfast that Krishna provided for that. Jeffrey Eckler is glowing. He's in the loving hands of providence.
No breakfast until after class.
Oh, you
Prabhu.
fast until breakfast, right? Jeffrey
I
Prabhu is
fast
very
until breakfast.
austere, very austere.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Okay, would anyone like to share a reflection, a realization, something profound, but in line with Guru Sada and Shastra, preferably, please? Anyone? Aaron?
Yeah.
Aaron, what's your takeaway? Yes, you. Hare Krishna. Tell us. Did anything, maybe something stuck out to you in class that you'd like to reflect back? Unmute Aaron. Somebody unmute Aaron. Hare Krishna. We can't see you. Maybe it's just me. Jeffrey Eckler, you're wearing headphones. Can you hear Aaron?
I cannot, Prabhu.
Even with those headphones. Gosh.
Doing the trick.
Yeah. Okay, Aaron, maybe you can type it in the chat. Bring back the video. Aaron. Okay. Now it's Amnitai, Bhima Prabhu, Jeffrey Prabhu. Would you like to share?
Sure, yeah, I can share a little bit. I have to write to I think the GBC. I have some business ideas on how to acquire land, especially farmland. So I mean I can't do the business myself because I'm limited and I'm one person in funds. But I think if I have an idea, I think it's important that I share it because it's Srila Prabhupada's vision to for us to acquire, farm properties in service of Krishna. And I guess might as well write to the GBC. I think I'm in correspondence with Gauranga Prabhu, so I just thought I'll share that, you know, because amongst devotees, I really hope Srila Prabhupada's vision comes into light. So Gauranga.
If you need a simple laborer on your farm, let me know. That's my retirement plan.
That's what I'm trying to get to as well. And yeah, there's many devotees that are doing that already, so I'm definitely devotees can plug in. But yeah, I think it's whatever ideas we have, if we share it, we can make it happen.
Yeah, let's all bless Narottam Nitai Prabhu. Send him your blessings, dear devotees. He's trying to do something nice for Krishna. Gail has a question. Bhima Prabhu, get ready. You're taking questions on behalf of our Sampradaya today. Gail?
Hi, Krishna, everybody. Actually, it's just a little comment. I did have a question for Partha Prabhu, but I don't think Krishna wanted me to ask it because my hand wasn't noticed, even though it was raised. Anyway, my little comment is, when Prabhu was talking about the fires jumping, apparently like randomly, from here to there. And it was just so that stuck out at me because I was following those big California fires. And that was a very prominent feature of those California fires, where the residents, they were bewildered by the fact that, one house would be burned and to the ground, to the evaporated, and the house right next door, or right across the street, would be untouched. It was just a very prominent quality of those big, like Hollywood fires, and Prabhu just really just directly addressed that, by saying that it's not all random, even though it looks so terribly random. It's the hand of God. Saying this one, not that one. So yeah, I just when he was speaking, I just wish that all of those who were suffering from that situation could, could like hear this thing, today, this lecture today. Anyway,
Thank
that's
you,
my
Gail.
comment.
Yeah, that's a great example of Krishna's working in everyone's life. And it's not random, it's Krishna. Great, thank you. Bhima Prabhu, Adipurusha Prabhu, any comments, questions? Please. This is the afterglow. Hare Krishna.
Hey, Ram.
Yeah.
Hi, Ram.
Oh, Mrs. Adi, look.
Hi, Ram. Ram. Good morning. Krishna's in your heart. Krishna, Krishna, Ram, Ram.
Yeah, I think he was he just wanted to be acknowledged. Thank you,
Okay.
Adipurusha Prabhu. He's peaceful now.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay, Bhima Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Bhima Prabhu. A few words from you, please.
The best few words I could say, Prabhu, is Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Radhe.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
That was profound. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Thank you very much. We're satisfied. Discussing Srimad Bhagavatam with the Vaishnavas every morning. This is our lifeline. We love you. We need you. We love you, Tilaks. Everything about you. Thank you. Okay. Neha. Neha is going to be the finisher today. She's going to unmute herself and say Hare Krishna. Neha.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. Perfect. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.